Well, it's come to this. This is what I have to do these days to survive in the year of the apocalypse. A G-man reduced to a single instinct: review Subverse. Because apparently I have some kind of reputation for reviewing these kinds of games. Yeah, I can't imagine where that came from. Anyway, this is a game that I backed when it was on Kickstarter way back in 2019. Yeah, how time flies when you've spent the past 24 months living through a goddamn pandemic. It ended up going on to meet its goal, getting almost £2 million during its campaign, or for it to finally come out in 2021, still unfinished and in early access, which is where most games go to die.
Hold on just a sec, sweetheart. I'll be right back with you.
Developed by Studio Faub, Subverse is kinda like Mass Effect if it was ever made by perverts, and has you playing as a guy who's a cross between Deadpool and Peter Quill, wearing underpants on his head for some reason and talking in one of the most over-the-top and emphasised Australian accents I think I've ever heard.
You reckon, eh?
Alright, but let's make this quick.
And yeah, this is coming from a guy who's made a living off an emphasised Australian accent. In case it's not clear what I'm talking about, well, imagine me doing the rest of the video talking like this. Tell you what mate, this bloody game here, Subverse, is a fair dinkum ripper. In this game you're a true blue legend, fanging around whoop whoop picking up a bunch of Sheilas. Or perhaps if I did the rest of it sounding a little bit like this. How does it happen? You're leading your crew, or watching the news, or fighting pirates till you thought you would burst. You sure got a thirst. You can get it killing. You can get it chilling. You can get it giving some alien bird a good old-fashioned plow. Matter of fact, I got it now. I don't know, man. I guess they thought Aussie accents sound funny or something. I mean, I suppose it was either that or they'd go for a Kiwi accent.
I've got the word MILF tattooed under my eye.
Right, so the story takes place at some point in the far future where Earth's remains are a skid mark on the galaxy, and you're playing as one of the only few remaining humans, simply called the Captain. At the start of the game, your only present company is a companion droid that looks like Edie from Mass Effect named Demi.
That is correct.
Demi's a personal assistant droid because, of course she is, that the Captain stole away from a pirate warlord, and she's like a combination of C-3PO from Star Wars and Cortana from Halo. That is, if Cortana ever looked like a VTuber robot with fully functional human anatomy. And just like in Mass Effect, you're also going to recruit your very own crew, beginning with a scientist named Lily and a pirate queen named Killy.
Now, I'm here for one reason.
There's a whole backstory going on here too, set in the Prodigium Galaxy where a new empress has just been sworn into rule over the Imperium, which, I don't know, guess is supposed to be the network of planets and systems that fall under the Prodigium's rule or something. Yeah, gotta say too, nothing gets me more in the mood here than political jargon.
Consultations between the Executor of the Veil and Prodigium's ruler are supposed to be sacred and confidential. Empress Celestina, I sincerely apologize.
They start talking about trade federations and planet blockades, well, then I'm checking out for good.
Can you do me a solid and tell me just what the fuck is going on here?
Then with all of this going on, the Captain's hired to help bring down the Imperium by putting together a crack team of expectedly female crewmates to assist him. Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Despite the fact that up until this point, as far as I can tell, all he's really done is a bit of drug smuggling. Mostly space cocaine, or cocainium as it's called in the game. Yeah, how do they come up with these highly creative names for things?
Hey, that wasn't my fault.
About the cleverest thing in the game at this point is that your ship is called the Mary Celeste, which is kinda cool because the Mary Celeste was a ship back in the 1800s that vanished only to be recovered with its entire crew missing, much like the circumstances surrounding how the Captain found his ship in the game. That is about the highest praise I have for the writing though, but I'll get into that more later.
Mate.
Outside of the vast abundance of these lengthy dialogue sequences, Subverse is really broken down into three main areas. Firstly, you've got the shoot 'em up top-down ship combat where you move around with the keyboard and fire and aim with the mouse. Well, I mean, kind of. Your projectiles don't quite match up with where your crosshair is aimed half the time, so you've got to kinda lead your shots to compensate for the direction an enemy's moving. You ever play that game Asteroids? Well, forget it, because this is nothing like that. Depending on who your co-pilot is, you've got alternate attack modes. You can also dash forward to either dodge or ram into someone. And there's a turbo mode if you need to get the hell out of harm's way.
Nice one, lad.
I've got to say that it does look pretty nice and it plays smoothly, but I just found that this whole thing got old pretty fast and it just becomes monotonous and repetitive. They never tell you how many waves or enemies are left, so I was really just mindlessly strafing around these cordoned off areas shooting constantly. often losing track of where the crosshair is because of the sheer amount of particle effects on the screen, when it's like trying to play darts while someone shines a flashlight in your eyes.
Abso-bloody-lutely.
You don't really need to worry too much about being killed though, because your shield recharges automatically, and the game has always conveniently given me health pickups whenever I've taken too much damage. But I just find that I'm always playing through these sections in autopilot mode, no pun intended, and it just doesn't really offer up any serious challenge. Ships often look like certain parts of the male or female anatomy, but it's really just a visual difference. You just use the same strategy against these mostly unremarkable looking enemy ships until the whole thing comes to an end. The few times you come up against tougher ships and bosses that actually have different attack patterns, I found were way more fun to play, but these are sadly pretty few and far between. Finishing these combat sequences nets you extra credits and resources, which can then be spent on upgrades for the ship. It's just, these upgrades are so incremental that they don't even make that much of a difference. Like, I mean, a 5% damage increase isn't really that noticeable, man. Still though, it is a serviceable, just simplistic combat system, and really the most exciting this thing ever gets, because the other mode is the turn-based combat, which is a lot slower and more methodical. So slow and methodical that I even kind of struggled to think of any jokes or insults I could work in here. It's like trying to insult a slab of concrete. Where do you start?
Fire away. One less scumbag.
This is where you place your characters down on these tiles and take on all these different enemies using a combination of all your abilities to wipe out multiple waves, choosing either Lily or Killy to lead these Manticore troops that do your bidding.
Jolly good job.
You ever play that game called XCOM? Well, forget it, because this is nothing like that. There's really not that much depth to this mode either. You're either choosing between a ranged or a melee attack here, and there's not much more to it than just clicking on an enemy and repeating it until everyone's dead.
Taking the shot.
15 minutes later.
Don't mess with my babies.
Lily and Killy do have different abilities, but Lily's easily the best though, simply because she's able to heal the other units, though you don't actually control when she does this. And you can also pull off ultimate attacks which deal more damage, but again, unless I miss something, you can't control when this happens either. Most of these I managed to beat in a single attempt though. The only times I wiped was when it was up against a new enemy type which could pull off some kind of bullshit attack that I had no idea was coming. I mean, one of the enemy types, for instance, can spawn in new enemies if you don't kill it fast enough, and yeah, you can imagine that took the jam out of my jelly donut pretty quickly. In its defense though, this mode will probably be a lot more extensive once they've added in all the extra crewmates in these Manticore units. Right now though, you're either only choosing from Lily or Killy, and then 3 or 4 possible Manticores. And I reckon once you've played a couple of these, you've really seen all there is to see here. It's just the same looking environments over and over, and the same enemy types throughout. You fly around these little star maps exploring random planets, and it's either going to uncover a planet which unlocks a turn-based combat segment, or one where you're inside your ship. And I just can't help but feel here like it needs something more.
Well done, Captain.
There's 5 galaxies to explore in total, with only 1 available in this current version, but is that really all we're going to be doing the entire time here? For something as vast and expansive as space, there really ain't that much to see or do.
Yeah, thanks for that.
The final piece of the puzzle is the full-blown adult content, which surprisingly plays a pretty small part in the overall experience. And I do have to say here that unless you're an adult, you probably shouldn't watch the video from this point on, or else the internet police are gonna chase after you, and trust me, that's no good for anyone. In the current build, you've got the option to have sex with any of the 3 female crewmates. They're planning to add your mum into future updates, it's just she takes up a lot of hard drive space. Not to mention, there's no SSD that exists right now that can load in her fat ass. Oh, it's fucking stupid. These might have been cool too, but there's no challenge in unlocking them whatsoever. You don't have to score a certain amount of points or make the correct dialogue choices, it's nothing like that. At key points in the storyline, these girls just hand it over.
How polite.
I can remember playing Mass Effect 2 and having to spend the entire game saying all the right things to Tali just to get in the sack with her. In fact, it wasn't even until the second game when you could seal the deal. Now, I'm not asking for extensive character arcs that take me hours and hours to accomplish, but a character just outright saying that she wants my junk in her mouth isn't all that rewarding.
Please let me suck your cock.
Come again.
Or maybe the captain's just that much of a spunk that none of these women can resist his wildly Australian charms. I mean, makes sense.
That is correct.
Once you finally get to the deed itself, all you get are these very short, static encounters where the captain somehow manages to be flaccid and direct at the same time. I mean, there's pills you can take to fix that, believe me, I know.
I concur, Captain.
You get these maybe 10 or so second long loops that you don't feel any sense of accomplishment for because you didn't earn them through skill or hard work. You control the speed for a couple of them, but you can't move the camera at all. You really can't do anything but just watch it from this one angle.
That's good news.
Unlocking new poses is done by buying them, and for half of these, they're not even getting it on with the captain. I mean, in one of them, Lily's humping what looks like a goddamn desk lamp, or getting it on with tentacles or other alien creatures. So, to make it even worse, I'm getting cucked on my own ship. I mean, there's gotta be some kind of law against that, right? The dialogue for these characters is also pretty bad, and they're all just portrayed as being promiscuous from the get-go. Now look, hearing someone say they want to suck your dick can be a funny line. But when it comes from someone who looks like they could also host a masterclass on dick sucking, well then, not so much. You ever see that movie American Pie? Well, there's a famous scene at the end where Alison Hannigan's character says something incredibly vulgar about sticking a certain musical instrument inside a certain bodily crevice. And it was funny because the entire movie built her up as being this quaint, prissy character with a clean image. So to hear her bust out something like that, well, we all reacted the same way that Jason Biggs did.
Excuse me?
It's the same reason I think why watching old people fall over is funny to me. Part of comedy is defying conventions and breaking the norms. So in contrast to the robot/walking fleshlight, the scientist MILF lady or the pirate queen with her boobs hanging out, it's not surprising at all. It's all part of the plan.
Because it's all part of the plan.
I don't know, man. I just found the writing in general in this to be really hit and miss. And I don't think I laughed a single time.
I mean, goddamn. For real. That ass.
It's not like I'm trying to be too highbrow for this stuff, and anyone who's seen the kind of videos I make and the kind of jokes I like to use will probably attest to that. But the game is trying too hard to be funny all the time, which ironically makes it less funny.
Mate, I haven't seen you since we tag teamed that Niketh hooker in New Vegas.
I did a video a while back on a game called Together B&B, and some of the stuff in that game literally broke me. And it's so wild to me that a game that's funny unintentionally made me laugh way more than a game that's trying to do it intentionally.
Alright, I gotta go find that bitch. Daddy's here to spank you.
This isn't slander against the voice actors though, who really are giving it their all. Outside of the guy voicing the captain, who just needs to turn that Aussie accent down a couple of notches.
Why the hell would you do that?
A really good example of how sloppy the writing can often be is a one-off side character you meet named Master Bates, which is an obvious reference to Gordon Ramsay, along with the name being an obvious euphemism.
You can really feel the buttery nuttiness coming through now, yeah?
Stop fucking around!
But instead of coming up with a clever, witty name for this guy that's an allusion to who he's based off, they just call him something juvenile instead, like Master Bates. Yeah, just wait until Biggest Dickus hears about this.
You dirty pig!
On the flip side, they do the same thing later on with a side character called Randy Glitchford.
After a business lunch at the nearby Starcucks, I absent-mindedly left a small data capsule in the bathroom.
And I guess it was different this time because changing Pitchford to Glitchford takes less effort than it does trying to find something that rhymed with Ramsey.
Yes.
I guess at this point though, it's kind of hard to go back and rewrite all of this dialogue, and that's really the main problem with this thing on the whole, isn't it?
Is everyone around here an incompetent dipshit?
Because here we are, 2 years and almost $2 million redos later, heavily into early access, and what we've got here is what we're really going to be stuck with. If you don't like any aspect of what they're currently doing, well then I'm sorry to say, but I don't think that whatever comes out in these ensuing updates is really going to win you over.
Relax, Captain.
In the current build, which is 40-something bucks by the way, you're getting roughly 4 to 5 hours of content, and that's if you really take the time to smell the roses. None of the combat sequences are replayable, and once you've unlocked all the adult content, it's all pretty much done and dusted. It's not a total waste though, and you can tell that money's been well spent here, though I am sure too that a fair bit of the budget went into their own cocainium supply.
That is quite peculiar.
Jolly good job!
Subverse definitely has the potential, I think, to be a great game in the future, and I really hope it makes it there. But fair dinkum, right now mate, it's a fair ways off being a beaut and not worth a game.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.